We speak so often of brokenness in religious life. Let us speak today of wholeness. You are welcome here, all of you, every part of you, beautiful just the way you are. Here you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here, nothing to prove to me or the person sitting next to you or to the children or to anyone. You don't have to try and be witty or more quiet or more outgoing. You are beautiful, every part of you beautiful just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful just the way they are. You are extraordinary. Each and every one of you different from each and beautiful in your own beautiful way. Breathtaking. This time we have an opportunity to light our candles of community. You can light a candle for a joy, a concern, or simply to bring more light into our space.
What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? What happens when she rules her own body? What happens when she sets the beat?
What happens when she bows to nobody?
What happens when she stands on her own 2 feet? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she wears the crown? Whoa, we rise above. Whoa, we lead with love. Whoa, we have won. We are one. We've just begun. Whoa, we rise above. Whoa, we lead with love. Whoa, we have won. We are one. We've just begun.
We've just
What
begun.
happens when a woman? What happens when a woman takes
What
power?
happens when she
won't?
What happens when she won't
What happens when a
back
woman?
down?
What
What
happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens when a woman? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't? What happens when she won't? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens when she won't back down? What happens when a woman takes power? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens when she wears the crown?
Let's stand together in body or spirit for our chalice lighting and our spoken affirmation and the lighting of the peace candle. We light this chalice to ignite the divine spark of the universe, whose pronouns have always been plural, a co-creation of brilliance and diversity, a tapestry of souls perfected. Let us join together in our spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We light this peace candle to remind us of all the places in the world where there is no peace. Join me in the words now on the screen. Lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, our universe. May be seated. Our opening thought comes from Toni Morrison from the work Conversations. She writes, "The enemy is not men. The enemy is the concept of patriarchy as the way to run the world or do things." Our next reading comes from Bell Hooks from her work, Feminism is for Everybody, Passionate Politics. In a culture which holds the two-parent patriarchal family in higher esteem than any other arrangement, all children feel emotionally insecure when their family does not measure up to the standard. A utopian vision of the patriarchal family remains intact despite all the evidence which proves that the well-being of children is no more secure in the dysfunctional male-headed household than in the dysfunctional female-headed household. Children need to be raised in loving environments. Whenever domination is present, love is lacking. Loving parents, be they single or coupled, gay or straight, headed by females or males, are more likely to raise healthy, happy children with sound self-esteem. In future feminist movement, We need to work harder to show parents the ways ending sexism positively changes family life. Feminist movement is pro-family. Ending patriarchal domination of children by men or women is the only way to make the family a place where children can be safe, where they can be free, where they can know love. Our meditation this morning comes from Rosemary Bray McNaught. It's hard work. Let us join together in our meditation. Let us take a breath in and out. In and out. In and out. Why are we still talking about inclusivity and diversity when we have done so little to make them real? Why are we still looking pained about the lack of diversity in the denomination? Because diversity, inclusivity is terribly hard, terribly uncomfortable, definitely unsettling, and often quite frustrating. What I know about being inclusive, crossing from culture to culture, learning the language of diversity, is that it's the work of a lifetime. It's hard to accept people who are not like you, who don't talk the way you do, or believe the things you believe, or dress or vote as you do. It's even harder to appreciate them for the things about them that are not like you, to find them interesting and fun, to enjoy the learning that's part of the experience, and to acknowledge, finally, that you may have to agree to disagree. The truth is this: if there is no justice, there will be no peace. We can read Thoreau and Emerson to one another, quote Rilke and Alice Walker and Howard Thurman, and think good and noble thoughts about ourselves. But if we cannot bring justice into the small circle of our own individual lives, we cannot hope to bring justice to the world. And if we do not bring justice to the world, none of us is safe, and none of us will survive. Nothing that Unitarian Universalists need to do is more important than making justice real, here, where we are. Hard as diversity is, it is our most important task. Our next reading is also from Bell Hooks, From the Will to Change Men, Masculinity, and Love. To create loving men, we must love males. Loving maleness is different from praising and rewarding males for living up to sexist-defined notions of male identity. Caring about men because of what they do for us is not the same as loving males for simply being. When we love maleness, we extend our love whether males are performing or not. Performance is different from simply being. In patriarchal culture, males are not allowed simply to be who they are and to glory in their unique identity. Their value is always determined by what they do. In an anti-patriarchal culture, males do not have to prove their value and worth. They know from birth that simply being gives them value, the right to be cherished and loved. There seem to be a lot of self-proclaimed manly men telling the rest of us what it means to be a good man or a good woman in our society. Their vision for men is for men to always express power and control and to not show any form of weakness or what they perceive to be feminine characteristics. In their minds, men should be the leaders of the family and strong leaders in the domains of business and politics. Women who agree with this vision of men may to a certain extent share in some of this patriarchal power as long as they agree that their bodies are ultimately controlled by men and that their primary value comes from having children. Nothing screams patriarchy louder than equating the primary value of women with having children. What does it say about persons who constantly hearken back to the 1950s as the good old days, when that was a time when black people's voting rights were not protected, communities and schools were segregated, and women had no control over their own bodies in all of the states of the United States and could not even get credit in their own name. The self-proclaimed gatekeepers of manliness and masculinity are not really protecting masculinity. They are protecting patriarchal practices and structures that they believe perpetuate their power within society. And they're right. It does perpetuate their power within society. The purveyors of patriarchy are incensed about transgender persons and non-binary persons because they think that they are the only ones who should define what gender is and how it should be expressed. They act like someone having preferred pronouns is something akin to the 7 deadly sins. They know that if they give up their perceived power and control over gender roles and identities, it is one more brick knocked out of the wall of patriarchy. And yes, I was thinking about a certain Pink Floyd song when I wrote that last sentence. To borrow a little more from Pink Floyd, we don't need no patriarchy. I'm increasingly convinced that efforts to continue discrimination against our LGBTQIA+ siblings are much more about perpetuating patriarchy than they are about any deeply held religious convictions. And religion is simply used as an excuse or justification for continued discrimination. If your primary use of religion is to restrict the freedom of others and exercise power and control over their lives, you are doing it wrong. Sadly, though, so much religion is used to justify the perpetuation of patriarchy. Just because the authors of religious mythology lived in and were influenced by patriarchal cultures does not mean that patriarchy is divinely intended. And just an FYI, nowhere is Jesus portrayed in the Gospels as saying the inherent worth of a person or their value to the community is related to having children. Plenty of patriarchal Christian nationalists say this, but Jesus never did. When persons conform to the expectations of cultural patriarchy for their self-understanding and self-expression, they are losing opportunities for the full expression of their freedom, for the full expression of their personhood. With a massive gender gap in both economics and politics, patriarchy is not only holding us back as individuals, it is keeping us from becoming a fully free and flourishing society. As a country, the United States is ranked 43rd in the world in relation to gender equality in pay. 43rd in the world. Among states, Texas is ranked 34th, and Oklahoma is ranked 37th nationally when it comes to a gender gap in pay. Both are ranked lower when it comes to overall quality of life for women in those states, in our states. And in relation to political representation, we know that the United States has fallen behind most established democracies with respect to women's representation in politics. Women remain underrepresented at the federal, state, and local levels, according to the Carnegie Endowment. When women run for office in the United States, here's something that's interesting. When women do run for office in the United States, they are elected at a similar rate as in other established democracies. But fewer women in the United States are actually running for office as compared to the other established democracies. We know from experience and seeing it in other settings that election reforms like public financing of elections and ranked choice voting have proven to increase gender equality in political representation. But surprise, surprise, as a nation, we have failed to embrace such reforms as we cling to patriarchy. It's not an accident that the most vibrant democracies in the world are also, you guessed it, the least patriarchal countries in the world. The happiest, healthiest, most educated, least corrupt, and most democratic countries in the world are also the least patriarchal. And it should be noted, though, that the purveyors of patriarchy are quite willing to switch to more autocratic political methods of control as it becomes more difficult to perpetuate patriarchy through democratic means. So much of patriarchy is about money and power. Ever notice how patriarchal the oligarchs of the world are? The billionaires of the world, only 12.5% of the billionaires in the world are women, and a very high percentage of those persons have inherited their wealth rather than having made it on their own. Patriarchy and oligarchy are both about concentrating power and wealth in the hands of a few. So much of our politics is simply about rich men on power trips wanting to become richer men with even more power. We see this very clearly today, don't we? The evidence is clear. Patriarchy is a problem. Patriarchy is the enemy of a free and flourishing democracy, and countries that are shedding their patriarchy are far better off than those who are clinging to patriarchy. So, in conclusion, and once again borrowing a few words and a sentiment from Pink Floyd, with apologies to the grammar police in the room and online, we don't need no patriarchy. May we all find ways to take another brick out of the wall of patriarchy. So be it. At this time, we have an opportunity for giving. You may give here at the table, and there's also an opportunity to give online.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these vibes. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these vibes. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Let us stand now in body or spirit for our closing thought and the extinguishing of the chalice. Our closing thought comes from Elizabeth Lesser. Recognition of the harm that patriarchy has caused to people and the planet does not mean that men are wrong and women are right. Rather, it is a call for new organizational forms and for relishing gender differences within a context of equality. Let us join in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
That way I don't forget. Yeah. Right there. What's next? Oh, that's not where there's yeah, if you look at it right now, it's just all to the bare walls. I mean, they've removed even the fans and everything. They say 2 weeks. Guess how much I believe that. That's why they said it was going to be in August. And I said, are you guys guaranteed that it's going to be together by the time Carolyn's sisters are on August 31st? And they said, we'll start it right after. That's a good showcase. It's 70, about 70 people here. Yeah.